right, let's call the meeting of the Freeman School Board to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is roll call.
Debbie is out sick today, so I will be doing the roll call. Slade? Present. Emily?
Yes.
Cody?
Yeah.
Doug?
Yep.
And Kyle?
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda is we'll need a motion to approve the agenda. And we did have a couple of additions.
Yeah, so we have one scratch on the floor. That is no longer necessary. We actually were encouraged not to have a school board member be part of the Title IX committee because the school board would be the final step in the process. So we didn't want to have the school board have any biases going into that, so that would be a scratch. And then addition, agenda item 15, the school board will discuss how to proceed with the used classroom lights that have been removed. And 16 will require a motion to surplus or sell the remaining used lights that will be removed. These are two additions.
All right, based on those amendments, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Cody, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kyle, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is conflict of interest disclosures. I did not receive any, did you?
Not as well.
All right. How about any non-agenda items for public input?
There were none.
Perfect. All right, next is the consent agenda. Will require a motion to approve the following: the minutes of the regularly scheduled school board meeting of December 13th, 2021, the minutes of the special school board meeting of December 21st, 2021, minutes of the Cornwall Cooperative Board of Advisors meeting on December 14th, 2021, financial reports and claims for December. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Slade, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, administrative reports. So
Yeah, I put that in front of you already.
Yes.
So this Friday, January 14th, we're gonna have a data retreat with the colony schools. Part of being in school improvement was looking at our data and setting goals and stuff, and that's something that we've kept and continue to proceed with. Parent-teacher conferences are in the same format as last year, where we dismiss at 1:30, go from 2 to 6, 2 nights. Seemed to work pretty well last year. And elementary book fair is gonna be scheduled that week, and Becky is gonna organize and run the book fair again this year. We haven't had it in a few years. She does a pretty good job at our book fair. And then the following students made the elementary's honor choir. And here's how the honor choir works. They submit themselves to a judge, and I'm not sure where that's at. It's somewhere in the state. And then, so it's not picked locally, so it's picked at the state level. And these are the following students at the elementary school that were picked. And then they'll go up to Brookings on February 10th and do a concert. So it's a pretty big honor to get honor choir. So there's our kids in grades 4 and 5 that were selected. Any questions?
Any questions for me? Wonderful. Move on to high school.
All right, our senior students put in their capstone project, so a big thanks to all of those who judged. Several of you are in here right now. We had our staff Christmas party that was hosted by the administration. Big thanks to Judy Schraub for making the food for us, and thanks to our staff for continuing to dedicate their time to our students. Dual credit classes went well for the first, that should say, semester. Those are for juniors and seniors. We had about 13 students enrolled in dual credit who took a total of about 21 classes, and the grades were fantastic, so that was great for them. We've moved to a modified schedule for late starts, so instead of chopping off just a block or two or switching around what blocks are happening when, we just shortened all of the times. That seems to work. That seems to be a positive change at this point. So they're seeing every teacher even if it's a late start day. So we're not cutting classes off. For second semester, we've switched our lunches around, so our band students eat first, Middle school eats last. That's been great for our band students. They actually get salad bar now because that middle school eats a lot of food. They kind of demolished that, so that's been good. We had 1 student transfer out and 4 new students enroll in the middle school, high school since our last meeting, so that's still a positive change there. We've been working on class composites. We're just trying to get the right labels to the right students. As far as, you know, who the advisors were and stuff, so we do have some past documents, we're looking through that. Digital Solutions is working with us to get those completed and get those printed for the last, I believe it's 3 years, so those will be done pretty soon. We do have senior posters from the Army National Guard that will be hanging in the gym, but we had 1 misprint, and so we're waiting for that to get reprinted, and so I didn't wanna hang that one or anybody's up until they're all done at the same time. And that's for all of the seniors, and so they just kind of took pictures in some flyer gear or whatever their sport of choice was, and so we hung those up. I'll continue to put this one on probably every single time. Finding substitutes is still a challenge, so we're looking for subs. If you know anybody, send them our way. We have moved some classes over to Zoom to help us with this, so some teachers will be Zooming with students. And, you know, just a big thanks to everyone who has helped us in-house. We've had a lot of people help us in-house cover during their prep times or just whenever they can to help cover those, so I appreciate that. Upcoming things, junior high oral interp will start this week, 7th and 8th graders with Mrs. Sage. No school January 17th, SDSU's coming in, anybody that's interested, and juniors and seniors can go visit. And then our 8th grade career fair, that's in Wagner's on the 20th. And then our 1-act play students will go to the region contest on January 26th at Sioux Falls Lutheran, and then we'll see how they do there, and if they advance to state, that will be February, I believe it's like 3rd through the 5th, so we'll wait to make arrangements until we know. All right.
Superintendent update.
Yeah, so a couple months ago, I presented in my superintendent update that we potentially got a donor for the championship sign out by Highway 81. It's taken a little bit of work and some communication to find out who, you know, what avenue we needed to go through as far as the financing and then getting permission to put that sign up. So I spoke with Michael Walter and the FCBC. I presented at FCBC and asked them if ultimately they're the ones that are in control of that area, and they have granted us permission to make the adjustments to the sign. We still have the donor that's in place to fully support the funding for this project. So with FCDC's permission, we can move forward with that. That's gonna be run through the school, but the finances are gonna go through FCDC, so the donation check will actually go through their accounting. And Christy Sage is the individual that will be heading up the efforts to work with the donor and to make sure that the sign gets updated and becomes a reality. So very excited for that. The sign, if you come in from the north, doesn't look like it's in too bad a shape. It has faded quite a bit, but the south side is really the side that's taken the most abuse from the weather, and it'd be really nice to see that looking nice. That's included a picture of that in your packet that shows the current sign and the design that Christy has put together for the updated sign. So thanks to Christy for the work that she's put in for that. Legislative session begins this week with the Governor's State of the State address tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Some of the things that we will have our eye on will be what's going to come about with the 6% increase that has been discussed for education. Also, really right now, the only other Department of Education bill is a request to help fund the renovation of the Culture Heritage Center in Pier. So a lot of focus will be on that 6% and how, what the guidance is for how that will be divided up amongst staff. CBC has new guidelines that we'll discuss a little bit later for COVID-19. So we have made some adjustments for our safe return plan that we'll take a peek at later. Final certification for SPED child count needs to be submitted by February 11th. So between now and our next school board meeting, I'll finalize that information. And the final item, I met with State Representative Richard Bosgard this week, and in the 3 that state representatives I met with so far, now there's a common theme. There's a shortage in funding for education. So all 3 have really expressed their interest in seeing how that 6% will be broken down. Right now, we're last out of 50 states in funding for teacher pay. So that 6% will it'll be nice to see how that helps to improve the percentages and how we rate nationally for teacher pay. And we're just excited to see what the next legislative session is gonna bring. Includes the superintendent report.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments? Great, next on the agenda, unfinished business items. I do not believe we have any unfinished business items. Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. The school board will hear a proposal for an elementary school restructure for the 2022-2023 school year.
I've included in your packet some teacher input that Shane had gathered from our elementary staff about a month ago, I think it was. I asked Shane to gather feedback and wanted to present that at our January meeting. We want to make sure that we are making a decision about what our structure is going to be, so we can decide what we want to do as far as full-time educators and how many positions, if we decide that the board wants to split grade levels, how many teachers we would need to add. So I asked Shane to head this up and talk to teachers and come up with a plan that listed options for the board to choose from. So I'll turn over to him and have him take it away.
I think you have the packet in front of you. So in the packet is three options that we're going to propose to you. On the second page is the elementary enrollment, and then attached to that is the staff input that Jake said he had sent out to you. Basically, the purpose of this was, we had some elementary classes that ballooned last August. Towards the end of the year, we had 2 classes, or almost 3 classes, that just exploded on us. So we wanted to give you guys some options to look up, and so the main purpose was to free up some class space to accommodate the current growth that we have, and then the future growth if we continue to grow like we've seen in the last year. So currently at the elementary building, the elementary has 1 open classroom. So last year we had 2 grades explode. We didn't even have facilities to split them if we would have wanted to. So the 3 options that I presented to my staff and they gave me feedback on are option 1, which would move the current 5th grade over to the high school building like we did with the 6th grade. And that would open up 3 classrooms at the elementary end of the building. Then we could possibly split 2 of those 2 classes. The next year's 1st grade, which has 30 kids, and next year's 2nd grade has 28 kids. Currently, our kindergarten projections for next year are between 20 and 25, and I know Jake asked me how do we come up with that number each year, and it's basically Melinda does that. So when there's a baby born in Freeman, it goes on a list, and it gives her basically 4 years to catch a newborn child in our district. And I will say the 10 years I've worked with her, she's pretty close on her kindergarten projections with social media and stuff. So, I mean, like when Kyle, you had your child, that kid automatically goes on our list with the birthday, with the parents, and then, so we track it that way. One of the things we're not able to track is out of district and out of state, and we had a huge influx of out of state kids this year, and most of them coming from states that had their schools shut down because of COVID or were completely remote for 2 years. So those are the figures we can't project. We can't project those out of district placements. We can only project the kids that we have here in Freeman, and we're normally within, I would say, she's normally within 3 kids. So option 1 would be moving the 5th grade over, and I know there's some concern about that, and I know Katie, I don't want to speak for Katie, Katie has some concern with the 5th grade coming over. Option 2, 3 years ago when we approached Growing Dreams, we had all these empty classrooms in the building, and at the same time we started our special needs room, and we had all these empty classrooms, and we thought that would be a nice addition to our building and our community, bring them into our building. But so option 2 would be terminating the Growing Dreams lease, and this would open up 5 classrooms for us at the elementary, and we would then try to keep 5th grade at the elementary building, and there's talk about moving the 6th grade back to the elementary building. And then we would move forward, if you guys decide, to split the 2 elementary grades that are large right now. Option 3 then would be leave everything as is. We take that 1 open classroom and we split that 1st grade class of 30 kids, and then that leaves us absolutely no room for growth if we have another balloon of out-of-district placements like we saw this year. I think we gained 22 kids just in the elementary wing, which is basically a whole class of kids. Any questions on those? I know that probably one of the biggest concerns I've heard from staff and even Katie is even with the sixth grade being over at this end is there's basically one bathroom. So you got 12-year-olds, you know, we were all that age, and some screwing around that happens in the bathroom. I think there's even concern with our sixth graders being over at this end of the building. Maturity wise, you know, some kids are ready to be over here, and there's probably a bigger majority of them that aren't ready to be over in this type of setting with older kids. So option 2 obviously would give you the most flexibility as far as maybe doing what's best for sixth grade and bringing them back and giving you some room for growth. And I hope we need those rooms. I hope we do see the growth like we did this year.
If the board were to decide, we'd be looking at 2 additional FTEs that would be coming in, that would be hired for this next year. I have, since this does, if we did choose that route, that option, that would impact Growing Dreams. I wanted to be very transparent with them, so I have notified them that this is something that we will be discussing tonight. I've encouraged them to come to the February meeting and share, make sure the board is aware of all the things that they're doing currently in this facility and any other options that they would have within our community. We certainly want to make sure that we are being neighborly for them and especially for our families that have kids that are attending there, and the shortage of daycare that is within our community. We want to make sure that they're taken care of and they have options.
Any questions, discussion?
So it's recommendation, like your recommendation is, do you have an option that you're recommending for sure? Well, is it one, or, I mean, or is that the order you prefer as far, and then?
I don't, yeah. I agree that I think that there's some concern about moving fifth grade over to the high school building, just as someone that has a sixth grader, that I asked him about that and, you know, sharing bathrooms and whatnot. He's like, oh no, I don't have a problem. I said, oh really? And he said, yeah, I just hold it till I get back over to the elementary. He just doesn't use it. So, you know, I agree that probably that I could see where you're getting concerned about moving even younger kids than the sixth graders over to the high school. So I do see that as well. But also understand that, you know, Growing Dreams, as someone that sent all my kids to Growing Dreams, it would have been great to be able to drop all my kids off at one spot and things like that. So I understand that as well and know that they provide a great service for our community as well. But appreciate the input of the teachers and folks that live this every day. But anybody else have any comments?
Has Debbie weighed in from a budget perspective? She's not here, but as far as adding 2 full-times?
Yes, and she is aware. And
She's comfortable?
Yeah, that's something that we're comfortable with.
Okay.
We have also discussed adding an FTE at the high school, that would be something that would help us to expand upon our elective opportunities for our students. Right now, we feel like that's maybe a year off yet, but we would look at the 2 FTEs for elementary and take another year and see how things go. Primarily for, we have a new ag teacher coming in that's getting certified between now and the start of next year. And the vision would be if at that point in time, after a year of teaching gets under her belt, that if she feels like she would like to expand into the CTE realm for some of our family consumer science classes, we can look to maybe getting her that endorsement, expand upon the cooking classes, and then maybe look at hiring another FTE to fill the areas of welding and the woods classes. So we just need a little bit more time to let pieces of the puzzle fall into place there and see if that would be of interest before we take those steps. So right now, the focus would be the elementary and solving some of the issues. This is one of the areas that was expressed in our teacher meetings as an area of concern and something that our teachers really wanted us to take a look at the board level of how we can bring some of these larger elementary classrooms to more realistic numbers. I don't think the intent tonight was to make any decisions or offer any recommendations. Right now, our goals are to present and make sure the board's aware of what we feel are the best options and give them a month to think about it. It'll be interesting to hear what Growing Dreams presents in February as well and further our discussion.
I think the school district is growing at a pretty rapid pace as far as student numbers go. You know, initially when we agreed to the Growing Dreams project, I guess, it's because we had the extra class space. Things have changed, and unfortunately for them, our good fortune is probably gonna mean we're gonna have to make some changes with that, because if those classrooms are needed for students, that's gonna have to
That
be our
needs to
number
be
one
the
priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay, we'll move on. School board will hold a discussion about the second reading of the following policies: the Title IX policy, which you have in your packets, which is the sexual harassment policy, as well as the facility naming rights policy. And again, these are second readings, so we've already seen these back in the December meeting as well. Any questions or concerns from anyone regarding either of those policies?
Both are included in your packet. This works out timing-wise perfectly. We have a training that we'll be sending 4 individuals to that I alluded to earlier. This will be in, where's that again?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Actually, I never
Yeah.
seem to get
Cedar
that
Shores.
right.
You can say Chamberlain.
Across from Chamberlain. So we'll be sending 4 members to that. That's on January 19th. So we'll approve the policy. We'll bring that approved policy, well, assuming we'll approve that policy tonight, and bring that policy with us then to our training, which will really help us to make sure that those individuals are trained properly. Any questions on either policy?
Questions, comments? I don't have any either. Will require a motion to adopt the Title IX and the facility naming rights policies. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Doug, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Kyle, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Again, we're getting rid of item number 4, so we'll move on to number 5. The school board will hear a report from the Facilities and Grounds Committee.
Go ahead, you can start.
Okay. Couple of recent meetings. First, we met with Jeff McCormick from SPN about the softball baseball complex. They've updated and given us a more itemized budget. Costs are increasing every day. Thorough estimate, there's some things in there that wouldn't necessarily have to have initially, such as a concession stand, but I guess not real surprising considering the undertaking that project is gonna be. Obviously, we've all discussed our wishes to have field turf on one or both fields, which comes at a hefty price tag, but, you know, the budget came in well above where we were hoping. I would say the market test numbers, because Hanson School District has just recently been on a project where they're gonna be putting turf and new lighting on their football field, so the lighting numbers and the turf numbers are exactly in line with what was just accepted on that project. So we're a long ways off from where we need to be funding wise to get those going. And we're gonna have to do a substantial amount of fundraising to make that a reality. Questions?
I don't have any.
In regard to the multipurpose wrestling room project, we also met with Catherine this week, an architect from GLG. In your packet, she's provided a kind of a reduced floor plan. We looked at what's on the market now for bids, so we would have the option to go back out for bid as the project sits right now, or with what I call an abbreviated version of the project. We're not taking any space away from the wrestling room area itself, but we would be taking off officials' room, restrooms, and storage room. So wrestling room would stay its current size. There'd be a small corridor that we're required to have for access in and out of the auxiliary gym. Would allow us to get rid of the ramp on the exterior of the building to the east, and it's a reduction of the most expensive space in the building. The restrooms and the officials' room are square footage wise the most expensive space because of the plumbing fixtures, the amount of mechanical roughing, rooftop units, things that need to go in there, so. I believe it's the next agenda item, we'll be discussing which direction we wanna go with that. This option that's revised would require some redesign, so there'll be some fees associated with that, which we'll be getting from JLG, but timing wise, if we were to leave it as is and go out for rebid, January 27th looks pretty favorable. We'd have enough time to advertise for 2 weeks in the paper to fulfill our legal requirements. If we went with the revised version, projecting middle of February is the earliest they can have things redrawn and repackaged for us to approve and go back out for bid. Jake has identified some areas in the existing building where we'll be able to store mats. So the storage room was a concern, but we think we can make some other spaces work for that and be able to keep, the large space of the wrestling room as it was.
Anything from you, Cody? Anything additional? Okay. Next item on the agenda, let's discuss, next step for the hangar project before we make a motion. What are thoughts about going as is versus a pared down version, and timing for rebid?
What is the potential savings like?
That's what I was gonna ask, what do you? Based on the square foot cost, the initial bid came in at, if we were gonna get the same square foot cost, which we won't because it's more expensive space, but just say you were dollar for dollar, it's about $480,000 less.
Okay. That's a big chunk.
How,
So the apparent low bid and the first bidding was 1.55, so that would put us just over $1 million. That held true. If it comes in, under that because some of the more expensive items are no longer in the proposal. A perfect world would be to be right at that $1 million, in my opinion.
and the storage we think we can get by with without?
We'd be looking at the mats would be down in that area for a longer period of time. Some things that we could explore if we had to have the mats up, could be that we look at having mats that would be used in the wrestling room for the practices, but then those mats would be used for competition as well. It's, in my background as a wrestling coach, it's kind of nice every once in a while because there is dust and dirt that gets underneath the mat, so occasionally it's good to get those mats up and be able to sweep underneath, and custodians can take our automatic sweeper in there and clean the surface underneath as well, just to keep that area sanitary. It's a little bit more work as far as moving the mats, but ultimately we move mats anyways for any of our competitions, so it's a matter of whether they're moved from the storage room into the gym if we have a competition, or from the practice room into the gym. So that could be an option that we look at.
What are we sitting at for price per square foot? How is that gonna differ with the scaled down version versus the original? Is that gonna be basically the same, or?
It should be less because, for instance,
For plumbing.
plumbing fixture, just the fixture, no roughing associated in the commercial world, runs about $2,800 right now. So when you've got multiple stools, urinals, things like that, we'd be down to one rooftop unit just over the wrestling room. We wouldn't have to have that second unit on top. We're eliminating a whole line of beams, columns, footings, all the tile, all the, I would say, fancier finishes, no sheetrock. We didn't discuss this, but if we really wanted to, we could bid the paint on the inside as an alternate. It's gonna be a gray concrete panel. Paint's about, on precast, the paint that's specified is about $1.82 a square foot applied, so also more cost. But I would anticipate, based on current numbers, the space that we're cutting off would be more in that $300 a square foot range. So I would hope that it would be at or under $1 million in this option.
So this option would come up to how much a square foot, roughly? I'm not gonna go into it.
That's based on saying it's gonna be $250.
$250 a square foot for the scaled down, $300 for the original.
Well, if you're looking for opinions, it's a bummer that I think we would have to get rid of some of that, but in the interest of building the room and getting the space that we were ideally looking for, I would be in favor of going with the scaled down version, and hopefully then that can become a reality.
I agree with you.
I have a hard time swallowing the fact that for a rectangular, empty, cinder block walled room, it's $250 a square foot. You can build an amazing house for $250 a square foot. And, well, that's what I mean. But we're not getting anything for this now either. I just don't know why we're jumping in at the worst possible time to build, price-wise, A. B, you have construction projects across the entire country that are stalled because supplies are bottlenecked. You have construction sites sitting idle because you can't get in the items you need to finish those projects, from housing to commercial. Why are we gonna spend top dollar on something we don't even know we can get built at a time frame that we want it to get built? I think there's a time to pump the brakes and say, hey, things could only get better down the road. I was in favor of waiting a year, and I might eat my words and it could cost double this in a year again, and I'll have to, I guess, face that if that's what happens. But I don't think that they can keep going the way they're going. Prices, supply chains, they have to get better. And I don't know, $250 a square foot is just unacceptable to me for a rectangular room with nothing in it. Call me old fashioned, I'm very 2019, I know, but.
No, I understand your point too, and I agree, it's, a hard pill to swallow to pay more for something that it, is necessarily worth, but I don't know, I feel like, not doing it at all, between that and doing the, $1.5, $1.6 million bid, this is a nice kind of compromise, in my eyes, but.
I feel like maybe 10 minutes ago, we were just talking about how we didn't have enough bathrooms, and now we're putting in another facility with no bathrooms. It's just,
I don't think it was not enough bathrooms, I think it's just the age of the kids using them being a large spread, especially during those middle school and high school years, but, because you could still use those bathrooms adjacent right here, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate if we do elect to cut the square footage off, but we do have locker rooms right inside the door.
Right.
So if we did said someday in the future, the softball complex became a reality, you could build much cheaper space over there for an official's room that's closer to a football stadium. It wouldn't have to be the same type of structure as what we have here. It should be simple and cheap, and also it's gonna be limited where it's not needing to match up with the current structure as far as construction type.
I would be in favor of bidding this new proposal, because I feel we do owe it to our wrestlers to have them a room where they can wrestle.
So you would go with the mid-February plan for the abbreviated version, Cody?
That's what I
What
would
you're
say.
thinking?
That's what I would say.
Okay.
That's me.
I would agree with that. I think if we were to delay it, I would want a solid ironclad commitment that we would set $1.2 million aside, saying that that's the first money that gets spent on a capital improvement. And we're talking multiple projects. As a parent of a kid who loves baseball, I absolutely want to see those fields get built. As a taxpayer and a school board member, I have a hard time making a sizable capital improvement to something that cannot be used 12 months out of the year.
and I'll be the Grinch in the room and say, we can't afford either one. So this isn't a if or, this is a no to both. We are buying 2021 building projects with a 2019 budget, and it just does not add up math-wise.
I think we had set how much aside for this hangar project?
1.5 for both projects is what
Right.
we originally, at the start of the
Okay.
year, had set aside for this year, rolling into next year's budget.
Okay. And I mean, Debbie's looked at those numbers and is comfortable with that, okay.
I think where she might have a more difficult time is if we extend that budget.
Mhm.
Right now, the goal all along was to keep $1 million in our capital outlay.
Right,
Nice contingency for the district, and I've heard feedback from the board that that's what they wanted to see as well, so that's why we targeted 1.5 for
Okay.
both projects.
okay. Any other questions or comments? So I heard from Cody, who wants to target mid-February with the abbreviated plan. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
That's fine by me. If you're looking for a motion, I would make that motion.
Okay. All right, so we'll require a motion to approve the advertising and the rebid of the hangar project. Kyle's making the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 4-1. Next item on the agenda, the school board will hear a report from Activities Director Christy Sage about participation numbers, ADMs, and sports classifications.
Just need a second to get her set up on this.
Oh, perfect, okay.
I'm going to give you folks a hard copy here. Just one-sided. Hello, I'm here to share participation numbers and ADM numbers concerning the possible cooperative we're looking at for sports for next year. So on the screen here, and you folks have a hard copy, again, these are projected participation, so those numbers are coming from student athletes that are participating this year. That's what that's based on. So the numbers we have from this year are grades 6 through 11, so just bump those to next year. So the first spreadsheet at the top shows the three schools, Freeman, Freeman Academy, and Marion, and the first numbers are just for girls. So listing the girls we project to be participating in grades 7 through 12, and then the total on the right-hand side. For each of those sports, cross-country, volleyball, basketball, track and field, golf, cheer, and wrestling. The next spreadsheet down shows the same thing for boys. The sports listed are soccer, cross-country, football, basketball, wrestling, track, and golf. Thank you. And then, the next one down, they're side by side. I did break down just the Freeman, just our numbers, those projected participation. I did break it down just by junior high, 7th and 8th grade, and high school numbers, just to give a little more of a breakdown concerning our students. Again, our middle school sports, the majority of them are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but I don't have those 6th grade numbers, so if we were looking at that, those numbers include just 7th and 8th grade student athletes. Again, keyword is projected, right, based on what we've had this year. The next item on our sheet here, ADM from fall census count, that's what the High School Activity Association calls that. In the past, that number has even been a decimal. They've taken some averages, they're not doing that anymore. And their reasoning, they said, well, it's just if the student is in school, whether it's online, whatever it is, they're not, you don't have half a student, so they had some explanation on that, but it's a hard count number there. Those numbers I have, that's what the state listed. They sent out their ADM counts that will be used for the next 2 years. The cycle typically is 2 years. They used the count from this year for the next 2 years. This year was an odd year, it was a 1-year cycle. The reason we had a 1-year cycle in South Dakota was we were, I don't know, we were off from North Dakota, so we're trying to get on track with others. So this year was kind of a strange in that sense. So, those numbers are there, so, and I list them separately because of course, football is the one thing that looks at strictly the boy ADM. So you can see the ADM for Freeman Academy and Marion, again, broken down by girls, boys, and total. Below that, I listed what classification that would put us in. The document I have is the 21-22, so this school year's classifications. They've done the ADMs. We haven't seen that document that shows the actual cutoff, but that probably doesn't change very much. Where for Class A to B, the 90 is the cutoff for basketball, cross country, track and field, and volleyball. So I've listed those together, and soccer as well. Soccer is one of those that's just A and AA, so that's a little different. But those I've listed as Class A. Again, that cutoff is 90 for ADM. Class B, wrestling and golf are both, it's either B or A. Okay, so we're still there. I shouldn't say just golf is B8, but golf, the cutoff is 140. Okay. Wrestling, the cutoff is 225 for B and A. Again, with co-op schools, right, you come with those numbers. The last thing on my list there is football. So football, again, has its own calculations. So in co-ops for football, if you had so this is our example. If we have 3 schools, they call the largest, the one with the largest ADM is called your base school. And you count all of your boys, 9 through 11 boys. And then if you have the other schools, they go by their participation and they count 20% of the ADM for each participant. Well, you're at 5, you're at 100% of your ADM, right? It doesn't take long to get there. That changed. It used to be 10%, and that changed. So based on that, you would count Freeman's 26 boys, Marion's 26 boys, and Freeman Academy had 1 football participant. So that is 20% of their boy ADM. So that is 3.4 persons, right? That information, the state confirmed that. That's how they would count that for us next year. So we know that. There are 3 classes in 9-man football. Their handbook states if there are below 64 9-man teams for 2 consecutive alignment periods, then it would go to 2 9-man classes. Next year, it will be 3 yet. And then probably the next alignment, there would only be 2, was the information I received from the Activity Association. So, questions?
I don't have any questions. Anyone else? I think so. Thank you, Christie. That's very helpful. Okay, next item on the agenda, the school board will hear a report from the task force committee board members, but please feel free to chime in if I miss anything. So we were able to meet in December with the extended task force. Many of you are here tonight. Thank you so much for coming. And Christy was a part of that as well. We discussed kind of, what she went over, enrollment numbers, participation numbers, And also received input regarding a potential sports co-op, what they felt the community, as community representatives, what they felt that they would support, and what that would look like. So we took all of that information and that guidance from that task force and met last week with members of the Marion and Freeman Academy Board, and we presented them with that proposal that's linked to the agenda. They're going to, the consensus at the end of that meeting was that they will bring it back to their full board, and they'll have it as an item on their agenda for the school board meeting. Freeman Academy is meeting tonight, and Marion was going to meet tonight, but they rescheduled, they had a conflict and rescheduled for tomorrow. So that will be on not only as an agenda item for discussion, but also for action as well. So if all three boards pass the agreement that we decided on, it would move forward as is, kind of as we presented it to them, and as our task force guided and instructed us. But if any of the three do not pass it, it would be null and void at that time, and we would kind of, start over, so to speak. So, anything that I missed, Doug?
No, we have not been informed of the status of the talks between Marion and Parker. We've been written up, but
Right.
they didn't share that information with us. So knowing that all three boards would take some form of action at the next meeting.
So what's in your packet is the formal, in the packet is the formal co-op agreement that has been presented to the neighboring districts. Within that has the actual breakdown of percentages that is also linked to the agenda. I refer, that's the one that has the page 5, would have the red heading on it for each of the activities per season. I refer to that as the kind of the cheat sheet for the cooperative agreement, is breaking down the specifics, and we embedded that within the formal plan. So should all three schools move forward with this agreement, then all three schools would sign this copy of the sports cooperative agreement.
Any questions for Doug or I, as just regarding task force meeting or anything like that?
Was there any consolidation agreement attached to the co-op agreement?
Yep, if you look at that cheat sheet, that is listed on there as well. Yeah.
Yep, so what, in the agreement, what it shares is that at the summer, after the first year of the co-op agreement, so that'd be the 2022-2023 school years when this co-op will go into effect. The summer of 2023, it states that discussions will begin moving forward to the fall of 2023. We'll move forward to each community being us and Marion. Obviously between private and public, there can't be any consolidations. Between the Freeman Public School Districts and the voters and the Marion School District, the voters would decide if the communities, both communities supported a consolidation.
Any other questions?
I guess, did the committee take into consideration how many more students we have now than we did a year ago or even 3 years ago, as to why would we even need the sports cooperative anymore? We
Yep,
did.
absolutely. Yep, we looked at numbers and forecasting for the next several years, based kind of similar to what Christie did, but even then marched it out based on current enrollment for, 2-3 years down the line, and took a look at those numbers as well. Certainly if we continue to trend positively, which we hope that we do, but we could be looking at moving up to, A classification sooner than later, if we continue to trend. But again, that's a large assumption to make, and I left my crystal ball at home, so I don't make any claims about that. But no, absolutely, that was at the forefront of our discussion.
I'm looking at the numbers, so let's say the 2016-2017 school year, our ADM was 303. As of this year, we're at 382, and am I correct, and that's even a handful short? Is that 4 less than we actually have? From when I talked to you earlier today, what's the increase since that number was put out?
For this year, since the date, how many of the elementaries up?
I picked up one today.
How many total since the state?
3.
Age count? 3, or you have 4? How many since last Friday in September?
If it's one a day, it'd be 8 more.
Well, 4 and lost 2.
Four,
We've
four
lost
at
2 since
elementary.
the count, we've lost 2 and 4, so we're up 2 at IP.
About 6,
4 at Delman.
so 6 total.
So we're up on the year at least 45 from last year, closer to 49, I'm guessing then.
We were up 44 from 2019 to 2020, and then or 2020 to 2021. I should say it was up 44 students, so we're up an additional 6 from that 44.
So we're at 50 altogether. We have 50 more students than last year, 79 more than 2017, and we still need a sports co-op. I guess I'm gonna have to disagree with the committee on that.
Some of our discussion revolved around, we've got classes that have healthy sizes to them, but that doesn't mean everybody participates, and we've got some that the ratio from male to female students is pretty skewed one way or the other. So we've got those years where, you know, when you have a class with 4 boys and 1 or 2 of them participate in sports, that we really kind of.
So I'd say we have more of a participation problem than an actual numbers problem. So maybe we should just focus on increasing our participation, not adding more numbers and still having bad participation. I know for volleyball, this year we had 12 or 13 freshman girls go out for volleyball. That's just one class. So what's gonna happen, you know, you have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. I can't remember the number you put up earlier, Christy, but it was pretty high. And then you add another 30 girls to that from the other schools, or 15, I guess, be more realistic number. And you're gonna leave a lot of girls on the sidelines from our school district or something like that. Now, I understand why we're doing this from a football perspective, but I hate to throw every other sports program we have under the bus just to save 1 or 2 years of football. When realistically, with the numbers we have, we'll probably have our own football team in 2 years regardless of how this goes, so.
I guess for me, just speaking personally as not part of the task force, I understand where you're coming from, however, I think it is important too, you know, talking about participation and things like that. I think it's difficult to get kids to participate if you're, you know, a freshman starting, oh, it's so exciting, whatnot. If you're playing up against a senior, first of all, for contact sports such as football, there's a safety issue. And otherwise, I can see how that would adversely also affect participation, because if you're a freshman, again, going and playing against a senior, where's the carrot to want to try and get better? They're 4 years older than you, you're never, you know,
Sure.
besides giving it time, I guess there was that. You know, talking about volleyball, then great, you know, even with basketball and things like that, let's add an 8th grade team, let's add a, you know what I mean, other teams as well, so that they can actually compete against kids their same age.
So I guess my argument would be, when you add 79 kids, you're gonna be able to add all of those grade-specific sports without having a co-op. I mean, there's 80 more kids now than when we started this conversation a few years ago.
But again, I think, like Doug said, there are some classes where you've got mostly girls, no boys, things like that. I think a lot of our discussion that we had was just, you know, with those numbers going up and down within a class, or, you know, or from year to year, that something like a sports cooperative where it can be a little bit more give and take offers a little bit more of a steady line versus that up and down as well. That was another thing that was brought up as well.
Chris, do you mind if I ask you a few questions while you're here?
Yeah.
How many Freeman high school students did we have play in the co-op last year with Canastota?
We had 8 go over last year.
Okay, and then you had a
We
meeting,
ended with 7.
so we ended up with 7. You had a meeting 2 weeks ago to ask how many students wanted to play football, if it was an all Freeman team. How many students were receptive to that?
Did you specifically say all Freeman?
We had, what do we have, Dustin, 15?
Yeah, something like that.
Some didn't show up, some slept in that morning. So, I mean, technically, what that showed up that day, I think we had 14 kids there that actually got out of bed and showed up that morning.
So just from last year to this year, we have double participation just from not being in a co-op, is that correct?
Yeah, we got more numbers.
Yeah.
I guess I look at it as you had 15 people that showed
Is there
interest.
public input gonna come up?
Yes, that will be next. Yeah.
Nope, you used it all up, too bad.
I think we have to remember that, you know, as a task force and as a board, the public steered us in the direction of exploring this, so, and an overwhelming majority of the public steered us this direction.
I think only 20% of the public actually submitted votes, so I wouldn't consider that overwhelming at all. I'd consider that.
Of those that
1/5.
responded, of those
Right.
that responded.
And I would say that 80% then were okay with the status quo, so I guess it's a matter of how you look at it.
I would disagree.
Fair enough?
Go ahead, Cody, sorry, you were saying something.
I just saying that there was 15 that showed up, that's not saying 15 of them were for surely going out.
Correct.
15 of them got out of bed to show up to a meeting. Who's to say that when push comes to shove, 15 kids are gonna actually show up to play football?
Well, I think it depends who's in charge of the program, for one. It's gonna make a huge difference as to how many kids you have going out, how many kids you retain, and how many kids continue to be going out for football. So that's on us to get the right pieces of the puzzle put into those coaching spots so we have higher participation. And that's for every sport we have, basketball, volleyball, everything. I think we're doing a really good job of putting the right pieces in place coaching-wise. I don't see us going in another direction with that anytime soon, so I guess I'm a little more optimistic that we're gonna be able to shore up any holes we have.
And also, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, we don't need to. I mean, yes, we can survive status quo. I think the goal of the task force was to look at ways in which we could thrive and build upon programs. So it's not, you know, a die or survive type of situation. It's not that we didn't think that we couldn't do it on our own, that wasn't the point. The point was, how do we add additional opportunities for students? Some of it being education-wise again, which, you know, was again part of the conversation as well. You know, how can we even resource share for those teaching positions that are difficult to fill? Not only is that budget friendly, but also offers our students more opportunities as well. You know, could we add, you know, Marion, for example, has an amazing FCCLA, something that we don't have. How could we share that opportunity for our students? They don't have FFA, how do we, you know, build our program for that as well? So I think, while we're talking sports, absolutely, and that, I mean, that's what it is, it's sports cooperative. I think, you know, the future vision of the task force and certainly was a topic during our meetings as well, was to offer things beyond that.
I know one thing that was brought up a year and a half ago was the cost of fuel to bus kids back and forth. And now fuel's twice as much as it was last year. Did we ever figure out, for that board member who was curious, what the fuel cost would be?
I figured it out on my own. It's an expense, it is.
All years, how much is it?
It's about $7,800 for practice.
For all sports, one sport?
For all sports. Okay. I think by tying this agreement to a consolidation also, we're looking beyond sports a little bit.
So so like, I can argue both ways on all this, and I can, like, if you're talking just football, yeah, sure, it's easy, like, that's the sport we need help in right now. I think ultimately it comes down to, if we can do this with the consolidation being part of it, like, the win there is, like, what we'd be able to offer as far as educational opportunities, and that takes care of our participation numbers, and we're headed towards Class A anyway.
Why not just make this a consolidation vote then, as opposed to a co-op vote? That way we get what we want, and we're not beating around the bush for 2 years.
I think, because, again, public input, which I disagree that I don't think apathy is the same as saying, no, I want it to stay this, because that would be a no vote then.
Was the vote specifically
against
for a
it.
co-op with Marion and Freeman Academy, or was it to explore co-op options in the area?
No, absolutely.
So
No.
some people might have been thinking
You're right.
Canastota, other people might have been thinking Menlo.
Absolutely.
So I don't
Yeah.
think we need to take it as a broad brush claim that the community
Right.
wanted
But this
co-op.
would also be a good chance to see how things go. This would be a nice dating period before, you know, before you do something a little bit more permanent as well, so.
Something to keep in mind too, when we decided to move this direction, we submitted a formal letter to all of our neighboring districts and asked them if they were interested in having these conversations. And we heard immediately back from Menlo, Menlo did not have interest, and we respect that, and was happy they got back to us so early. And we respect that Canastota decided to go a different direction. So what we had left were the two other neighboring districts, and that's what led to diving deeper into those conversations, which is leading us here today.
Yeah, I guess for me, if this was tied to a consolidation, an actual vote on consolidation, I would be 100% for it. Seeing as that's not the case, I'll be voting no.
Okay. Any other comments before we open it up for public comment?
But that is in here, isn't it?
Consolidation.
We will discuss it in 2 years.
It's just a
This discussion and go to a vote. and
Yeah.
all-
It will go to a vote. It goes to,
That's-
it will go to a vote.
That's.
But this isn't voting for a consolidation in 2 years, I guess you might vote. This is just to start over in 2 years on a consolidation.
Well, this is
No.
tying
That
this
means
co-op
it-
to a consolidation vote
No.
in 2 years, so.
The vote
if
would
all
take
three
place
boards
in
approve this, there will
Correct.
be a consolidation vote in 23.
A vote.
A vote, a public vote in 23.
Okay.
I know that was the cheat sheet we gave.
No, that's, okay, that's all I remember.
Great, any other questions or comments before I open it up to, public comment? All right, next item on the agenda, school board will,
Emily, I was just thinking Bashful,
Oh.
but is it okay if I say something?
yeah, no, we'll open it up for public comment, is what I was just saying.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, no, go, did you wanna say something for the task force, or?
Yeah.
She thought you were moving on to the next thing,
Oh.
but you're reading what's next.
Yes,
So you're-
sorry.
I was ahead of you, sorry.
Yeah, I'm only allowing 12 seconds for public comment. Thank you, everyone. Yes, all right. School board will allow for public comment on all sports cooperative between Freeman Public, Marion, and Freeman Academy. Go for
I
it.
should wait till I stop blushing, Chris.
I'm sorry. Jeez Louise.
I can go. Do I need to go, is there a microphone?
There's not, but you should stand up
Okay,
there so
I know.
everyone can have a good look at you.
My neck's really, really red. No, I just kind of want to reiterate, I believe a few meetings ago that I talked about the process behind how this task force came up with the solution for the surveys. Actually, 20% is a pretty respectable and average rate for survey responses. We wanted to give everybody in the community, all taxpayers, a chance to voice your opinion, as well as students too. And so we did see that the public was behind this, so yeah, I just want to reiterate that. And this wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to the football co-op either. We have been meeting since August, and we've had several meetings about this, so I just want the board to take that into consideration before you vote, so, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I'll talk a little bit here. It was brought up earlier, we got 50 new kids this year, right? Is that what we roughly are sitting at right now? Do you know how many of those kids participated in sports this year? Of those 50 new kids that came in this year, how many participated in sports? 2. 1 junior high boy and 1 high school girl. High school girl's done 1 sport, the junior high boy did the junior high season in 2 sports. So by saying, it's great for the district. We're getting all this additional funding, but the bottom line is, we're getting all these kids, it's not helping our numbers in sports. It's not helping. I have our rosters this year, okay? I have our boys basketball, I have our girls basketball, I have wrestling, I do not have volleyball here. Yes, you have it.
I didn't do volleyball, I'm sorry.
So I don't have volleyball, I'm prepared there. But you know, with our numbers, we're relying on 7th and 8th graders to fill varsity positions. That's not the place for 7th and 8th grade to be playing at 7:30 at night. Their time is junior high, JV, and they are not physically, unless you have that D1 kid that comes up and, you know, once in a lifetime type of kid, we don't have that. And so we're relying on 7th and 8th graders to fill our teams. Boys basketball. Take away this year, after this year, we'll have 4 seniors next year, 4 sophomores, 3 freshmen, or no, we'll have 4 seniors, 4 juniors, 3 sophomores, and 2 freshmen. We have no 7th graders. So, I mean, that's a matter of 8, that's 13 kids next year for boys basketball. Girls, we have no seniors this year, so we have 3 juniors, 3 sophomores, 5 freshmen, 3 8th graders. So that's 9, 14 girls for varsity and JV. And then we have 3 7th grade girls. But again, we're relying on 7th and 8th graders to play right now. So, do we need a co-op? Yeah, and if our numbers are increasing that much, we're gonna be Class A soon. Any extra bodies are gonna help us. I just hope that we aren't in the mindset that we're afraid of co-ops because it's gonna take opportunities away from our own kids. If we're on the board because of that, that's an issue. We're on it for, you should be on the board, you should be in sports, you should be in this for everybody, not just for the best of your family or your kids. I have one dog in the fight. Zach's got one more year. I'm gonna keep coaching. It's not because I just coach because of Zach. I coach because I love the sport, I love being around kids. And I wanna make them the best. That's why I do it. So, I think by having this co-op, we're giving our kids the opportunities. That's all I got.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, we will end the public comment portion. Is there any further discussion from any of the board members regarding the sports cooperative agreement that you'd like to say before we vote?
I guess I have one more thing to say. If we have 50 new students and only 2 of those students are going out for sports, that's a huge problem. We don't need to look outward, we need to look inward and fix what's going on with that, and that'll fix our sports programs. Not looking to other schools to fix something that's obviously endemic as to what's going on in our school district. 2 out of 50, that's awful.
I can't speak in detail to that. 'cause I
A
did
lot
not
of
break
those
down
are
those
elementary
numbers.
also, so they can't participate.
And we're talking sports, so I don't know if there was other extracurricular activities or fine arts that they were involved in. So that number will grow in that area.
Any other comments before we vote? All right, let's do a roll call vote then. This would be to approve a sports cooperative agreement between Freeman, Marion, and Freeman Academy beginning the 2022-2023 school year. Again, you've seen the document. This needs to be voted on by all 3 boards and passed by all 3 boards before it would actually become reality. So Jake, do you want to do a roll call vote, please?
Do you have a motion on it yet?
Oh, do I have a motion? Sorry, guys.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Cody. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All right, now roll call.
Okay, Slade,
No.
Emily,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Kyle.
Yes.
All right, 4-1. The sports cooperative agreement between Freeman Marion and Freeman Academy beginning the 2022-2023 school year is passed 4-1. Next item on the agenda would be discussion around posting the position of junior high and high school head football coach. Any discussion?
Post it.
Yep, I'm in favor.
Stop and post it.
Easy
Post
one.
it.
Post it.
Post it.
This is one that's come up for the last couple weeks here, since we had the discussions with Canastota. We felt that it was maybe too early. We wanted to make sure that we had our discussions with our neighboring districts that are gonna be part of our sports cooperative before we decide to take that jump. It does say in the co-op agreement that the head activities director would organize the interview committee, so we're in a good spot now. We feel like this is the earliest we possibly could agree to this as a board, and we'll find out what's gonna happen with the other schools with their co-op votes, and if they choose to be part of the co-op and accept the co-op, then I'll work with Christie and we'll put together an interview team that would be made up of all schools represented by the co-op.
One item, obviously since this is gonna be possibly more than, we're gonna need applicants for both junior high and or high school, I prefer that we leave the position open for an appropriate amount of time after we decide if we are, and once we do post the full-time teaching positions. I would hate to discourage a teacher from applying here because they have the wish to coach somewhere and discourage them. So, since it could encompass multiple positions, I'd like to keep it open for at least, say, 30 days past when we post teaching positions,
Sure. Okay,
if that sounds. Does that make sense?
it does. I understand that. But I also agree it would be good to post it and get the ball rolling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion or comments? All right, then I will require a motion to approve the posting of the position of the junior high school head football coach. Do I have a motion? Motion by Kyle, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Slade. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a motion to approve a joint election with the city of Freeman for the upcoming school board election on April 12th, 2022. Motion by Cody, do I have a second? Second by Doug, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 14 will require a motion to approve the modifications made to the safe return to in-person learning and continuity plan.
So I just printed off this in your packet, I just printed off the 2 pages that would be impacted by this, and it's just 1 page. We have on page 5 of our current safe return to in-person learning and continuity plan, the COVID-19 cases and close contacts, which includes contact tracing, close contacts, household close contacts, COVID-19 positive individuals. And what we're proposing would be the area in yellow. And throughout this plan, we very purposefully referenced the CDC and the South Dakota Department of Health and what they were saying for their expectations and what they were supporting. But we should probably have something that's a little bit more specific if we choose to go that route. The reason I wanted to put this as a board agenda was because of what is being proposed by the CDC, that now the South Dakota Department of Health has supported for schools, guidance for schools, and that would include the requirement, and so far it's been more of the encouragement to wear masks, but part of the requirements that Shane's gonna highlight here in a second would be that they would be out for the quarantine period or the isolation period, and when they come back sooner, but it would be a requirement by the CDC, according to the CDC, that they wear a mask in that time frame that potentially could still be infectious. So I'll let Shane's kind of our master of COVID here, and he's very versed in the CDC.
So a week and a
guidelines.
half ago, the CDC came out with new guidelines. The current guidelines that are in our plan that was adopted by the board and the committee this summer was, if you're a close contact, it's 7 days with a negative test to return, or 10 days of doing nothing. If you were positive, it was 10 days, you were out 10 days from the time symptoms started. So the CDC came out a week and a half ago, and then this week, or end of last week, the South Dakota Department of Health came out. What they're now proposing is, if you're positive, it's 5 days out, and then 5 days with a mask. And if you're a close contact, it's 5 days out with no testing requirement to get back in. And then mask for 5 more days. So there's a masking element that we didn't have in our plan, but it gets people back in school a lot faster, and it doesn't require the testing. So we have people right now in limbo that even today, we told them, it's 7 and 10, but it might be different tomorrow.
I'm not sure how that would resonate with our district and what I proposed here, and I think we can have the first portion that's highlighted in yellow, but proposed the second portion. We've had with this plan all along that we trust our parents and that we trust our students, if we're gonna be honest and truthful, and they're gonna do everything that they can when they are showing signs of symptoms, and the parents are gonna keep their kids home if they're sick. So the second sentence that would be added there would be, or first sentence, I'll read the whole thing, that here is a link to the current CDC and South Dakota Department of Health recommendations for isolation and quarantine. The Freeman School District shall not require the use of face coverings. However, we strongly encourage students, parents, and staff to follow the recommendations of the CDC and South Dakota Department of Health for the use of face coverings. And what's also in your packet, the final piece that's in your packet would be what is that the link goes to with the quarantine and isolation, which is the new guidelines that Shane was just mentioning for the wearing of masks. So what we are proposing for the update to this plan is that we strongly encourage parents to follow those guidelines. As a district, we're not gonna require that, but we are gonna very strongly encourage that they follow the CDC and Department of Health recommendations. Questions?
I'm a big fan of the strongly encourage. Let's go that route.
I'm a big fan of following the CDC and Department of Health.
And I think our community feels a lot the same way, those two statements right there.
Yeah.
And-
Pretty much sums it up in a nutshell.
And what the challenge is trying to create a policy that fits both mindsets, and we feel that with this, it does, it does fit what our needs for the community are.
Yep, I like that. Right, any other questions or discussion before we make a motion? All right, I'll require a motion to approve the modifications made to the state return to in-person learning and continuity plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Doug, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Cody. All in favor say aye.
All right,
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discuss how to proceed with the used classroom lights that were removed.
So if we think back to when we had the 3 lots that were on Purple Wave, we had a nice profit on the lights, but the lights we first put out for bid and for auction were the gym lights, both sets of gym lights, and then one lot was, the largest lot was 54 classroom lights. And the gym lights went pretty well. That was a nice recovery for us for profits on that, so we can reinvest into this project. The classroom lights were extremely disappointing, but for 54 lights, the biggest lot out of any of the 3 brought $10. And for the reason of that, those gym lights were something that somebody who's building a shop could repurpose and use for their shop, and the classroom lights are just not built for that same environment. So the thought would be, do we want to take our chances, and do we want to use Purple Wave and try to sell them and see if we can get them pushed down the line to somebody, or do we want to surplus them and then find somebody within the community that would have interest in possibly breaking them apart and recycling the pieces to it. There has been one individual within our community that has expressed interest in the remaining lights, so if we're able to sell them, whether the board chooses to go the Purple Wave route again and selling them, that's a cost savings to the district, because we don't have to pay to dispose of them. If we have somebody in the community that's willing to break them down and put in the labor to recycle the parts to them, that's a cost savings to the district, because we don't have to pay for the disposal of them. So that would be what's the questions that are posed to the board today and to talk about and decide on.
Sure. I guess, if we're talking a difference of $10, I'm fine just surplusing them out, especially if someone in the community is interested.
I agree.
agreed.
Okay, so I'll require a motion to surplus the remaining used lights that will be removed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cody, do I have a second? Second by Kyle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, executive session will require a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2 parentheses 1. Do I have a motion? Motion by Cody, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor say aye.
All right.
opposed, same sign.
Okay,
Motion
so good night.
carries. Thanks, Shane. We are in executive session at 8:20 PM. Thank you.
Good night.